Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast. I'm the host, Rico Muhammad. I will be joined shortly by my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow. And tonight we have our resident economist joining us again. Mr. Michael Lampel will be joining us tonight. Really looking forward to tonight's conversation as well. But first of all, we want to let everyone know that is in our listening area that thoughts and prayers go out to all those that had to endure the recent storm that came through Hurricane Helen. I know quite a few people that have been affected tremendously by the storm, and hopefully, like I say, thoughts and prayers are with all of them. Hopefully, everyone's power is getting restored and they're safe and dry and all of that good stuff. But with that being said, we would really like for you guys, if you are new to the show, please hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a thing, but it helps us out tremendously. If you could do that for us, we would greatly appreciate it. It kind of helps put us into a bigger, broader algorithm for the YouTube and all of the other stuff. Okay, it looks like we have a little bit of a technical issue. Let's see if we can adjust here a little bit. And with that being said, let me bring in my co-host while I work on this on the backside.
Hi there.
Say I'm coming in muffled?
Nope, now you're good. As soon as I don't want to say anything, but as soon as I come in, you sound better.
Because you let the intelligent people in the room.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Well, gentlemen, I tell you, it's been Michael, since the last time we've had you on, it's been quite a bit of a roller coaster ride. We have received a little bit of a cut in interest rate from the Fed, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like everyone talks about how great the economy is doing, but it really doesn't feel like that from a business standpoint, at least from my perspective. Any indications of things that you have been seeing or things that you have noticed that kind of could maybe put that into perspective for us?
First off, thank you, Rico and Chuck. And, the end of summer, it's been a great summer. Hope everybody who's suffering under that horrible Hurricane Helene is doing okay. I've seen the videos and stuff like that, and hope everybody's doing okay. I think we're in a transformative time of the world in economic standards, especially in the trucking industry. And I gave it quite a lot of thought in terms of the difference between the economy and logistics and a whole host of other issues. I think logistics is in a very unique area of the economy. It's an extremely unique area. And what I mean by that is that first off, a little bit of information for both of you guys. 8,000 brokers and 88,000 trucking companies closed down in 2023 alone. 2023 alone. I think for the listeners today, and a lot of them, I would really recommend they do some really hard planning on the financial side, because with the advent of technology now, we're living in what's called, in economic terms, in perfect competition, no longer in real competition. Till, for thousands of years, we lived under real competition. Now it's perfect competition. And that means that information now affects pricing instantaneously. And what that means for the logistics brothers and sisters watching is you got to be very careful of how you use capital today and how your debt load is managed, because you might load up on a whole lot of debt, and within a matter of weeks, the pricing of the loads drop through the floor, or fuel prices go through the roof. So they got to be very careful in their management going forward.
Yeah, I agree. The fuel prices have come down, but nothing else has to any degree. Certainly, freight rates are down, and truck prices and labor are not cheap. All the rest of it. Fuel being it's a big driver, but in a lot of cases, when fuel comes down, freight rates go down even further.
Right.
It depends. It really does depend. I think the access to information, it's not, if you have 8,000 brokers going out of business and 88,000 trucking companies going to business, then something else is going on because the economy didn't shrink by that much. So something else is going on.
Well, you know what? There are sectors of the economy that I don't think retail is doing great. That's number one. And you know, one of our good friends, Dean Croak, showed a photograph today or a video online of a large container ship coming in towards the port of LA. And this thing, I forget how many thousands of TNUs it was. It was massive, at least 8,000, maybe larger. And when you think back to 40 years ago, and I said this to Dean, when you think back to 40 or 50 years ago when I got into this thing, there were hardly any. There were some, but not like this. So every one of those containers pretty much is product that pretty much would have been made in America or North America. And now those jobs and all that work, all that material has been outsourced to other parts of the world. And I think that's where it's hit. It's hit the retailers, and of course, because now we've had and no offense to anybody, the Walmartization of retail and the Amazons of the world and everything else. They've taken a crunch out of most of the other retailers, the department stores that were flourishing 40, 50 years ago are going bankrupt left and right. And the ones that aren't are hanging on by the skin of their teeth. And I really don't think they're going to last. So everything has changed, and it's changed very quickly.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how the world is shifting now. But I mean, to give you an idea of where this is going on the energy front, and Chuck and I have had many conversations about this. So to give you an idea, Rico, something really unusual happened in the last 2 weeks. Bill Gates of Microsoft has entered into an agreement to purchase 3 Mile Island, one of the nuclear reactors of 3 Mile Island. And he did it because he only needs the reactor for his data centers, nothing else. He needs an entire nuclear reactor for his data centers. Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, which created ChatGPT, is in conversations with the US government to help him build something like 5.8 gigawatts of power. One nuclear reactor is 1 gigawatt of power. He needs 6 nuclear reactors for his data centers.
Wow.
My question is, what the hell is he going to do with all what is the purpose of having all of the data so called?
Oh, that's AI. That's how much power those chips consume. So what you're seeing now, how does this affect trucking? Well, this is going to get interesting because what that really means is now the question of how fuel is going to be allocated between trucking and homes and businesses and a whole host of other things. So the deconstruction of energy consumption is going to be really strange because you're talking about one nuclear reactor for one business. So the question now becomes, what's the impact on fuel prices long term, right? Because this is going to be the AI boom, which is just starting. This is like the beginning of the .com boom, is just starting. Right. We don't yet know what the effect of this is going to be on the larger scale. Some people can make the predictions, but the question is on mobility, transportation of goods. And a good example for that, guys, is how many trucks are going to downtown New York to deliver things anymore, or to downtown Chicago? Not as many as they used to be because a lot of the places people didn't come back to the offices. They're trying to mandate them back to the offices. And Gen Z has said, yeah, take a flying leap. I'm not sitting 2 hours of traffic to go to the office.
And that's had a huge impact on, just that alone. Okay. The fact that, everybody I talk to that works in offices or runs businesses, people are, the best people are available if they can have jobs working from home, because they don't want to take that 2 hour drive into Atlanta or Chicago or New York or any of the other cities. And, that's 2 hours out of their day. Plus there's the other costs, the parking, the wear and tear on the car, everything. And your people can be a lot more productive. So what they're doing, of course, is we call it hoteling, where people come in 2 days a week or 3 days a week or 1 day a week, use some office space cooperatively, really. Today you're sitting in this desk, next week you're at another desk. Now that's had huge impact on, I don't know about Atlanta, Rico, but in Toronto, we have this huge underground tunnel connecting all these downtown skyscrapers that there's wonderful shops down there, and they're folding ever since COVID.
Yeah, and that's another thing that they're talking about potentially could be a bubble that's going to burst is the commercial real estate, because of nobody's so much coming into the office so much, so it's getting more and more difficult for a lot of places to justify keeping leases on a lot of those office buildings and things of that nature.
Oh yeah. What was really prime real estate 5 years ago is no longer prime real estate. All that has changed in 5 years.
So the reconstruction in the industry, in the transportation industry and the trucking particularly, I think it's still going through a transformative time. There's still no clear-cut future path in terms of when you look at the more millennials than ever are self-employed. It's one of the most busy self-employed industry. I think when you're looking at the entire thing, there's condos being built, but they have very few parking spots, mostly bicycles. I don't know if it's the same in the United States. There's no new rail lines being built, which, amazingly enough, I don't really understand that part at all. I mean, the government could spend a ton of money on stupid things, but apparently not on transportation. Don't know why. And the congestion is so bad in most of these cities, Rico, as Atlanta, New York, Chicago, and Toronto. The congestion is so bad. It's like the millennials saying, like, forget it. I'd rather quit and stay home.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible.
And that affects the trucking industry huge because of the amount of time that is wasted. Your average long haul driver drives, I believe, unless they're out in the open plains, out in Nebraska and stuff, they're getting 7 hours a day of actual trucking time. That's the average. They're losing 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's the driver. And then you have the owner of the truck, it doesn't matter whose truck it is, they're losing 4 hours of productivity out of that truck and out of that driver. Now, even if they're paying the driver by the mile, they're still losing 4 hours of productivity, which is 240 miles a day per truck.
And I would say that it's time for the trucking industry to change their pricing model per hour.
You know what? I agree with you on this. It's the only way it's sustainable is how I think it's going to work, Michael. And I think some of my former colleagues may shudder when they hear this, and some of my former customers, but I think you're right. I think what's going to happen is the only way this is sustainable is, okay, the price from Chicago to Toronto is $1,000 based on a 10-hour trip. If it takes longer than 10 hours, the meter goes on. No different than when you have a plumber come in to your house and he says, well, Michael or Rico, I'll put a new sink in. It's $300, but you know what? I'm expecting it to take 2 hours. If it takes me 12, sorry, buddy, but if I hit a nasty leak because somebody previously had done things wrong, that's going to cost you. I can't pay for it. And you couldn't argue. What's the difference?
Because you guys remember, right? You charge a guy for a load of $1,000. You get stuck in traffic for 3 hours. You try and hit the bill for an extra 3 hours of labor. The guy takes it off. So I agreed to the $1,000.
Right. And right now, we don't even get paid. Like there's billions of dollars a year owed to trucking companies in waiting time. Never mind being stuck on the freeway. There's billions of dollars being refused payment by shippers and receivers for time wasted at loading docks. Really, when you have an appointment at, let's say one of those dollar stores, or it doesn't matter where, and you have a 4 a.m. appointment and they don't see you until 8 o'clock. And then they get you in a door and there's 24 skids to take off. That should tops take, at the very most, should take an hour, at the very most.
And
But
this
when
is where it
takes,
gets interesting.
it can take 4 or 5 hours at some of these places. Now you've
I
lost
think
that driver's productivity for an entire day to deliver a load. And nobody
this
wants
is
to
where it's
pay.
going to get interesting. It's going to get interesting because AI has the computing capabilities of doing data analysis. But what makes it really interesting, because I've been using it in my business, data analysis tools of AI, is previously most people did not do data-driven modeling or data-driven business models because they didn't really know how to manipulate Excel or their databases and drill the data. That's not how it works now. With these AI systems, you literally load up your raw data and you learn to start asking it questions and it dissects the data. And that data will show you a different way of billing. It's the AI systems now that can do instantaneous analysis of the data.
But the problem still is, how do you recoup? It may be able to do the billing, but how do you recoup the customer, number one, wanting a flat rate from point A to point B? They've always gotten it, okay? But it was a different world. And then how do you recoup the time wasted at loading and unloading docks if the customer's not willing to pay?
I think that's the one thing we've always talked about, which is the trucking industry does not share data on its customers. But eventually, as I said, if more, 8,000 brokers have gone out of business. 88,000 trucking companies have gone out of business in 2023 alone. It is not the economy that's driving these companies out of business.
No, it's lousy. Okay, it's the spot market. It's lousy pricing
No,
market.
they're not reading their data. They're not reading their data. Remember, we talked about this a year ago. I said if you're going to take a losing load, you're better off saying no.
Of course.
Those companies didn't say no. They didn't know their data. They didn't know their costing. They didn't know anything. They saw a customer, they saw a load, they saw an amount, and they took it, regardless whether or not they lost money. Well, that's the effect of not reading your data.
Right. And their data is, this is the cost per mile of operating that truck. Okay.
Exactly.
Now you've
Exactly.
got, you're going into New York, you've got tolls, you've got time. They're not reading. You're right. But unfortunately, our industry is rife with people that do not read data. They're hanging on for dear life and they're hoping that things are going to turn around next week. And there's no signs of it. Although you do
Let me
hear, go ahead, Mike.
well, let me ask you a question. How easy is it would be for me to go to a bank and say I need $250,000 for a truck?
They'd laugh at you right now. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, like up until about 2 years ago, you would have got your money. No problem.
That's what's happening. So when you see those companies going out of business, you're absolutely right. It's the credit. Credit flowed because they saw these companies as cash cows who were paying their bills. And it's no accident these companies went out of 2023. They went out of 2023 as interest rates began to climb.
Right. And that had, now when the interest rates went up, that had an effect for everybody because now all of a sudden people, there weren't 1-2% loans anymore. People, that the consumer was buying more stuff, and they needed more. Everybody, and people were just spending money like it was water. And there was a
Now,
bigger demand for merchandise.
as interest rates climbed, housing prices fell, demand for
Yes.
furniture fell. All of a sudden, these guys couldn't repay their loans,
Yep.
and there you go. So you got to in our lifetime, whoever's listening, data is going to be instantaneous to lenders, to customers, instantaneous.
You know, Mike,
We
in fairness, I have to say that companies like DAT have pretty accurate data that they share, they get from the industry. And how they get it, there are a ton of factoring companies out there. And they report their numbers of how much a load, because they see this stuff and they're taking their data and they are sharing their numbers with companies like DAT. So they're seeing that a load from California to New York pays $5,000. And they're sharing that with DAT, and DAT sees this all day, and they're the ones that are crunching all these numbers and reporting it. So there is some sharing of data. It's getting people to listen.
But it's also the accessing the data. Right now, here's the difference, guys. And I want to explain to you something how AI is going to affect all this. This is the part I want to try to explain it. Right now, Rico, when you type in any piece of information to Google, Google answers your question as a question.
Right.
But it answers your question by giving you information from other websites, and
Right.
they leave you to go through the websites.
Right.
The new systems, you do not have to read websites. The new systems literally compile all the information
It
and
goes and
give it
grabs
to
it and
you.
brings it.
Exactly. So if you're a shipper and I want to do research, let's say Yellow's gone, so I can mention their name. I want to do research on Yellow. As an example, I'm a lender and I want to know, okay, what's their history like? What's this? I can learn how to communicate with AI and I can get a pretty instantaneous, it's pretty good response of Yellow's financial position before whether or not I'm going to lend the money. If I'm going to be a major shipper getting into a trucking contract with Traffics, that's going to involve me saying to them, okay, I'm going to give you a business worth about $10 million a year, but I want to know if they're going to be around because I'm going to have to say no to everybody else right now. I want to know what Yellow's all about. After all,
Right.
I'm signing an agreement for $10 million commitment. I'm going to give them $10 million of business. I want to know they have the equipment. I want to know all of that. And I don't want to read their website for them to tell me some garbage. I want the internet to give me all the information.
Now, I also, on top of this, I think things are going to really tighten up now with credit for the truck industry. Now, it's gotten tighter, but now it's going to get tighter than a
Really
camel's bum in a sandstorm,
Exactly.
because what happened this week, the banks, all the Canadian banks, the 5 Canadian banks, plus the OEMs, financial arms, plus some American banks, just took the biggest haircut I have ever heard. It was a $1.6 billion bankruptcy, a company called Pride Group, which unfortunately is located head office in this area in Southern Ontario. And they had long arms. Their tentacles stretched coast to coast in both countries. And somehow the judge just ordered the receiver or the creditors to accept the owners, the people that are in the founders of the Johal family, put a ridiculous offer of $56 million to buy back their business, $1.6 billion in debt. Okay. And they made the creditors accept the $56 million. And the banks,
That's called the Donald Trump move of the art of the steal. He did that
yeah,
same
yeah.
move he did that same move he did that 3 times on the Taj Mahal casino. And when he went to do it the 4th time, they said, we'd rather burn it to the ground than do that again.
Well, you know
And that's
what?
why the Taj Mahal is boarded up, because it's saying, we're not doing this again with you.
I would say that if any of our listeners walked into a bank right now, the bank would, to borrow money to buy a truck, the bank would probably say, we would rather burn this money than give it to you to buy a truck.
Well, no, I would lend them the money, but here's the data I would now ask for. I would want to know their profit mile. Don't give me
Most of them,
revenue anymore.
unless they're a specialized carrier, I can tell you right now, most of them haven't been making money. Unless the specialized guys, I'm talking about the tanker guys and some of the specialized
True story.
oversized carriers, people like that, people tied up in the oil fields, people like that,
Yeah.
they will still be profitable. Okay.
Well,
But
those are
even
the specialty lines. We're talking
we
about
had
general trucking.
right. We had somebody on here within the last 6 weeks or so, Josh Mecca, who runs he does HR for a tank operator, and he was saying, believe it or not, even the tank industry, it's still good, but it's not as robust as it was. So they're even feeling it.
I think here's the key, guys. What's driving all this is that not everything works at the same time. It's like a golf
Right.
game. My driving will work, my irons will suck. My irons will work, my driving will suck. My putting will work, my driving and my irons. Okay. But the economy right now, I think we've reached peak prices on everything. From what my tentacles are telling me is we've reached peak pricing on housing, peak pricing on clothing, peak price on a lot of things
But
because we
the
can't
crunch,
expand this anymore.
but the
Yeah.
crunch is on the trucking side. Like for instance, we talking about new trucks. If you go have a new truck right now, and if you take that truck back in for service, Freightliner, Kenworth, Volvo, most of them, their service rates are start out around $250 an hour now.
Whoa.
$250 an hour for service. And most of the times you're looking at it at a bare minimum of about 3 hours of service for changing a fuse. So the small guy is the guy that's really taking it on the chin when it comes to this, because right now, especially if you're dealing with a majority of your freight is coming from the spot market, it is, when I say it is brutal on the spot market, it is an absolute bloodbath on the spot market now. And I can say that with absolute confidence because I'm dealing in the spot market currently.
So this is what I meant by how data is going to change things. I now need to record every single variable of all my business, and my AI systems will be able to give me a price per cost of per mile of everything, all of it. Which means if my cost of maintenance is starting to go up on that particular truck, I need to know that. I need to know that that truck is approaching the point of no longer 10 cents a mile maintenance. It's now approaching 20, 25, 30, and it's projecting saying if you keep this truck for another 80,000 miles, your cost of per mile is going to go from 10 cents a mile to 50 cents a mile for maintenance because the system is recording all the data of the truck.
But now, but herein lies the rub. Say if you are a small guy and you're using AI the way that you talked about, and say, okay, it may be a good time to get rid of this truck. But now, being a small guy, you don't have the available credit to be able to go trade that truck in or make a maneuver like that. Now, what do you do?
Well, it's the right credit, and therefore it already means you already overstretched yourself. If you don't have credit, you've already overstretched yourself. If you look, if I'm a business owner, you guys have been business owners, you go to a bank, the bank says, okay, show me your past financials, show me your current financials, but then show me your future financials. Because they now have the data-driven modeling too, to model your data and say, are these guys going to be able to be in business in 3 years? To now they're trusting you to be in business in 3 years.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to trust you in the future. And if you're talking about what these guys did, let me do $1.6 billion of other people's money and give them 6 cents on the dollar. Then the guys say, thanks for the promise, but we've seen this game before. We give you $1 billion, you
Well,
give us
you're right,
$1
Michael. And
chocolate
what
cake.
happens, you're right. And what happens is the trucking industry, when things are good, we are the darlings of Wall Street. Everybody wants to give us money. And that's how these guys got so much. And when things are bad, we are all painted with the same brush. Okay. If you're a small trucker and you've got a $300,000 line, you can expect, even if you're meeting all your covenants, you can expect a phone call from your bank within the next month saying, we're just checking, we're doing an interim, and they're going to ask you for some things they may not have ever asked for, just to
Let
make
me
sure
give you
that they're
now.
going to do a stress test.
So Rico, let me tell you what's going on that you really don't know what's going on. Your bank is already running those models on you. Did you know that? How do you think they're collecting the data?
AI.
What data do you think they're watching on you?
Say that again, Mike. I'm sorry.
What if which part of your data do you think they're monitoring in live feed right now?
Um, they're probably looking at definitely looking at the accounts payable and accounts receivable. What's that? How that the movement within those accounts?
Exactly.
Yeah.
AI modeling is already modeling it. It's already realizing how fast you're consuming your debt and how fast you're getting money in.
Mm.
They're already modeling it. You can expect a lot of guys to get very unpleasant phone calls.
So lines of credit are going to be starting getting called due.
They're
Oh
already
yeah.
monitoring, man. You should know that when you go to use your credit card, you get a notice on your phone. Hey, somebody just charged this. Da da da. And this. Remember, this is just the start. So
Big
I gave
brother
you
is
earlier.
watching. Yeah.
Let me go ahead, Chuck. Go.
There's no fooling around with numbers anymore because everything is so transparent. It's funny, with freight brokerage. Years ago, you would go into the bank and you go, well, we're doing $6 million a year, and we're making 500,000 or whatever it was, and the bank say, oh, you guys are doing great, blah blah blah. Here's your line of credit. Now, what they do with freight brokers, they've gotten very smart. They go, okay, you're doing 600, you're doing $6 million a year. You're doing $500,000 every month. We want to see your receivables. We want to see your payables, because if your payables aren't looking good and you owe everybody money for 200 days, we don't want to touch you, because what we're going to do is we're going to subtract your payables from your receivables, and that's the skin you have in the game, and we'll finance your skin if you're a good guy. That's how they work differently now.
So you remember earlier I gave you the story about the AI data centers,
Right.
right? Now the reason they need all that power, guys, is because of a little microchip that NVIDIA just came out with, and it's called the Blackwell.
Right.
And it's the next generation of AI chips. They haven't yet started shipping out. They're planning to start shipping out in the first quarter of 2025. Those chips require a massive amount of data. And the analysis reports I'm reading, and they're saying, if you think AI is now powerful, they said, you haven't seen a thing that you've seen these chips.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference now between AI and what we saw 25 years ago with the .com thing. I think AI is here to stay. The whole .com, if you remember, Warren Buffett refused to invest, and the rumor was amongst some people, Buffett is losing his mind. He won't invest in .com. But I'm sure he's invested, or his group has invested money in AI, because this is happening.
But here how, for the listeners who want to understand how AI works. You right now go to Google, you type in a question. Google has an indexing algorithm that looks up all the websites and it brings those websites to you. They let you siphon through all the websites. So far, so good.
Yeah.
AI doesn't work like that. What they literally do, what they did was they actually loaded every piece of information on the internet into the AI systems, all of it. And then you ask it a question, and it goes through all of that data in seconds and pieces together a response to your question. They're called large language models. As the system becomes more networked, the data becomes more live. And as the data becomes more live, it's going to become even more easily available, particularly to governments and to financial institutions.
Brave new world we live in.
It is. It's certainly going to put an end to some of those cash businesses that were always, the dry cleaners and the landscaping guys, people like that basically ran cash businesses. Certain small coffee shops and restaurants. It's going to put an end to it.
I make the prediction that even if the guys who think they're smarter than the the Canada Revenue Agency or the IRS by under declaring income, especially in the trucking business. We know that happens. Restaurant business, we know it happens. They're just going to go on your social media feed, and that system will detect where you are vacationing, and they're going to say, "Would you like to explain to us how you were in Greece for 3 months when your income was 30 grand?"
Michael, it's funny you say that. We had probably about 5, 6 years ago, we had a Revenue Canada auditor in, and I was talking to him, and I said, I have to tell you something. I am really impressed with how smart you guys have become. You don't miss it. And
I don't become
he
smart.
said to me, "You know what? Thank you for the compliment. We're not smart. You know what we have?" I said, "No, what's that?" He said, "We have technology. And that's how we are able to outsmart everybody." And he said this way before the word AI came. It was about six years ago or so. And he said,
Want to do
what?
is
We can, and all of our, he said, historically, we worked on our own, but now we share data with provincial and municipal offices. We all share data banks. And that's made a big difference in, and now they do things like what you said, checking social media. You're right. A guy's having a wonderful time in Greece, and blah, 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 and you're writing it off as if you're on a business trip in Greece. And I have heard of those things even before they had any technology, but now they have it right at their fingertips.
So what you want to do is you want to make a lot of money, and then you want to go to a soup kitchen, pretend as if you're getting the food. I'm not doing well at all. I'm at the soup kitchen. Look, that's me. Well, who took the picture? Never
I
mind that.
don't know a
There's
lot
me.
of people that brag about eating out of a soup kitchen, but I'm sure there's some.
Why
So
not?
how does this? How does what are you thinking? Because as far as a future outlook, Michael, what are you thinking? Because I'm not sure if we're going to necessarily see a turnaround in the transportation industry. Um, I'm not sure if we're going
Well,
to
no.
see.
Well, it's not that it's going to be a turnaround. I think it's going to be now between the smart players and the dumb players. And the guys right now, whoever's listening, my advice to you today is start to build a system to record all your data and start analyzing it today. Do not wait, because absolutely Chuck is right. There's always going to be a shipper ready to take a scalp off you if you're stupid enough to take a load at a 50% loss. There's always going to be guys willing to give you a load, saying, "Look at that chump. He just took a load from New York to LA for $2,500. Why? Well, because he was desperate. And I knew he was desperate, so I gave him the load.
Right.
Now, is the shipper smart? Not really, because what he's gambling is the guy will get to LA.
Right.
That's what he's gambling.
And so
because,
another thing with all of this, since we're talking technology and everything, let me try to connect a couple of dots as well. Because one of the other big issues that we're having within the industry is that the fraud is just running rampant. And the reason that a lot of these guys are being able to pull off the fraud that they're being able to pull off is due to they're a little bit more technology or technical savvy than most people, and are getting information, getting access to information, and being able to pull off the chameleon kind of like deal,
Yes and no. In the past, remember I said to you how Google works. So in the past, if I looked up, is Rico Muhammad crook, right? If there was any piece of information out there, let's say a news article, whatever, and you were smart enough to learn how to bury it, and I could show you how to bury that article, it would be on page 5 of Google search. In the new AI, there is no hiding. All I do is type in, "is Rico Muhammad a crook?" and it will pull out any obscure article ever written.
So, Michael, I'm very curious with this. I know that we went to a restaurant last week, and my wife said, "How'd you find this place?" I said, "Well, I looked at reviews." And she said, they can be, and the restaurant wasn't very good. The dining room was beautiful, but the service was appalling and the food was best mediocre. And she said, these people can buy their spot on Google reviews. Is that going to come to an end as well?
Well, that was interesting because, as you recall, when we were in Malta, I was looking for restaurants, and I said, and what it did was it gave me initially. I did this on AI. It gave me the reviews, the top restaurants based on reviews. Okay,
Right.
but then I changed the parameters. I said, no, give me local restaurants that has never been reviewed by a travel site, and give me their reviews. So I found restaurants that were extremely highly rated that have never been reviewed by the Expedias and all that, which meant they were only rated by local people.
Right.
So there were like 4 stars out of 2,800 reviews, but the reviews predominantly all local. So these were local restaurants. So what that means is this system is able to pull, depends on how you ask it the question. So the answer to your question earlier, in terms of guys in the future thinking they're going to be smarter than the financial institutions, good luck to you, because this data is going to get more fresh and more fresh. But here's the difference, guys. In the future, trucking broker who goes out of business once, it will be the last time he goes out of business.
Okay, because when they start up again, that will stick with them.
It'll never go away.
Well, let me ask something. So what happens a lot in trucking and in brokerage, somebody goes bankrupt and they start up again, but they put the company in their mother-in-law's name or their cousin Joe's name or whoever. Okay. What's going to stop them from doing that? So that
They'll do it once. How many mothers can they find?
I'm sorry, what's that?
How many mothers can they find?
But they
By
put
the way,
an employee's name, whatever.
yeah,
You
but
know.
the key is going to be, I totally understand what you're saying. Hide behind shells. It'll
Yeah.
work once, okay, maybe twice, okay, but not more than that. And by the way, you won't need a PhD data scientist to find this information. You'll just need a guy who knows how to ask the right question of the AI system, and it'll give him the answer.
Does Jimmy Jones have anything to do with ABC brokerage? And
Right.
it will pop up.
Right. That's simple. The data will be very hard. Forget financial records. You'll never be able to fake them again. Never,
No.
never.
Can't fake them
You'll
now.
never, yeah, you'll never be able to fake them again. All I'm saying is, and the government and the banks are going to be the #1 users of this entire system. They already are. They're collecting data in real time right now. They're already cutting back on people's, I'm sure, line of credit, saying, we've been monitoring your receivables or your business or your
Right.
income, whatever. We're noticing a dip here and a dip there. We're noticing da. We gave you a $50,000 line of credit. We'd like you to reduce it to 20. It's sitting right now at 45. We need you to pay down 25, and we'll give you 30 days to come up with it.
Yeah. I can see that.
Scary world.
Yeah. I can see that happening right now. And I'm sure it is. Matter of fact, I know it's happening with even some large carriers I've heard of that have had their lines cut because they're not meeting the covenants. And I'm talking about companies that have multi-million dollar lines of credit, but if they're in breach of those covenants, they're in breach. There's no hiding.
So those guys, by the way, bought the assets for 56 million. Good luck getting more money after that.
Oh yeah. Are you kidding? I don't think
they should have kept their 56 million and just invested in other companies.
Yeah, I agree. The court wouldn't even take the word, like Dan Einwachter, who I know personally, and he is a square, he's a square shooter. And Dan put out an affidavit on behalf of, I think it was Bank of Nova Scotia, saying that by this company going down will not affect the overall health of the trucking industry. And the judge didn't agree. He didn't take Einwachter's word, who I think knew a lot more about the industry than the learned judge in this case. The judge knew law, I won't say, but he didn't know the industry.
So I do
And
have one piece of news for you guys right now, and before we lose for the day, um, 36 ports. The dock workers at 36 ports are getting ready to walk off.
I was going to bring it up before we got out of here. Yeah, they get ready to strike.
that's going to be that's and there's a rail, one of the rail companies now, the same thing. I just heard.
Yeah, the longshoremen are getting ready to.
Yeah, I understand that the ones at the port of LA are not going out. They're members of another union. Thank
Well, the
God.
issue is, I think personally, incomes have reached peak. Can't see incomes getting any higher anywhere, anywhere. To give you an idea of how much incomes have fallen, guys. I about 9 years ago, when I tried to hire a director of digital marketing for my company, they were asking 120, $130,000 a year. I hired them now for 60.
Wow.
Half that.
AI, AI has
Now,
affected
my
that too.
question is, when you hire that individual for half of what you had to pay years ago, is that person going to stay, or are they just waiting for a better job?
Everybody's in the same income area for the same position.
Is that because we've trained so many people in those lines? Because I know
No,
certain.
because it's that the systems over the years, the systems that used to be complicated become simpler and simpler and
Right.
simpler and simpler and simpler to use. The data is simpler and simpler and simpler to access. The results are faster and faster and faster visible, and the AI systems are creating it even faster. So then you're wondering, well, 10 years ago, I needed you just to start because I had to plug every piece. Now everything is pre-plugged. So when I look at a truck in the future, and that's really the question, the truck in the future is not just the truck with rubber tires. It's going to be a traveling data center.
It is now because the data they're able to extract from
Telematics.
yeah, it's unbelievable. So they are data centers, and it's nothing with the technology that's in there to increase the amount of data that is being produced by that vehicle going up and down the road.
That's what I meant by those 88,000 companies didn't go out of business because they were just bad luck and bad economy. No, they went out of business because they didn't know their data. They didn't know
And
what the
yeah,
cost of running their businesses are. They didn't know the cost of their finance. They didn't know until it was just too late and click, done.
it's funny, Michael. Yeah, I remember you coming on the show when we were talking about people getting $6 and $7 and $10 a mile, the craziness that went on during the pandemic and shortly after. And what you kept saying as an economist is that's great. Watch your money, save your money, watch your, watch, just keep watching your money. And a lot of people didn't.
There's going to be ways to make money in this business, but now what's going to be is the smart guys are going to eat dumb guys.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to grow. We're going to go. My prediction, here's my prediction. In 10, 15 years, there'll be 20 new yellows, 50 new prides, but well-run organizations.
Yeah. Because we keep getting these people in the industry that are either grew up in it or they even come from other industries, but they've got great business training.
By the way, the one piece missing from this conversation, guys, is the licensing departments continue to give licenses to those guys who do this shit over and over and over again, but not in the future.
That would be a comforting thing for all of us to get rid of the bad operators.
Well, that's what the licensing guys are going to do. The license, I think the predictions are, my prediction is in the future, financing companies and the licensing regulators are going to be working hand in hand to
You
not
know,
give future licenses to people who keep bankrupting over and over again.
Michael, it's more than that. I got to tell you, even when I was dealing with, you know, when I was dealing with with one of the banks up here, over 20 years ago, And I remember I was very surprised. One of the many things they asked when we switched over from one bank to another, they asked for our safety rating, which I was glad to give them because it was a good safety rating. I was proud of it. I worked hard for it. But that gave them, these guys knew their stuff, and that gave them an insight into the soul of the company. Whether we were, pardon my language, shitty operators or not, we were good operators. That put that gave them some confidence in where they were lending money.
So it's going to be a fun time, you know. But I think again, it's not. By the way, anybody listening tonight, you can go on a website called Coursera, 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 and you look for a course called Prompt Engineering, Prompt Engineering, and these are courses you can get online that will teach you how to interact with AI systems, like 16-hour courses. You get a certificate, but it'll teach you how to create the questions and the systems in order to be able to get the answers you need out of the systems, because that's where the future lies. If you start gathering the data and you know how to ask the system to analyze the data, if you're ahead of the curve, you're going to win. If
Mm.
you're just going to ride it by the mile and just wing it by the seat of your pants,
You
good
can't.
luck.
No, those days are over.
Done. Done.
Well, initially, gentlemen, we were sitting there before we started the show, and we said, "Well, we may not need to go the whole hour."
Well, because
No,
you know
Mike.
what? Money is, this business is all about money, Rico. You know, and we're talking about money and the future of money in the industry, staying viable.
Indeed, indeed. But it also goes to show that these hours that we have, and once we get into the meat and potatoes of what it is that we're trying to get to, it never seems to be enough time, because this begs the question to a lot of different things, a lot of different avenues that we could go down. But before we do get out of here, Michael, I want to try to end things on a positive note. Um, what would be something? What would be something? Um, where would you guide everybody? I know you just gave a great nugget right here with the prompt engineering, which is a definitely. I'll make sure I wrote that down. But what can you maybe advise the guys that's out here listening right now to maybe give us some inspiration for the next 6 months going forward?
Go to Rico's house and get some of that steak. Uh, I think, look, I think this is an exciting time for a lot of things. Technology has never gotten cheaper, by the way. It's amazingly cheap. And I
Yeah,
think for anybody listening tonight, anybody with brains, anybody who cares about the business, anybody who cares about their drivers, anybody who cares about their customers will say, I can't look at this anymore as just a trucking business. I'm in the data business that just happens to be in a truck. And and I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that the new generation of truckers who are very tech savvy, who understand these things, who are going to be growing up with AI as we grew up with the internet, are going to understand that we want them to be profitable, we want them to be safe, we want them to be successful, right? And if we, here's the way I look at it, guys. Whatever it is we do, if we could save one guy from being ripped off by some scumbag shipper who just wants to take advantage of the guy, or one broker who's going to find a way to scam a whole lot of hungry truckers from taking loads and then not paying them and stiffing them, then we win.
I agree. I totally agree.
Well, Michael, we definitely appreciate you for taking the time out. We are recording this show, ladies and gentlemen, not on a Tuesday night. We're not live, of course, but we're recording on a Sunday, and Michael was gracious enough
I'm
to.
giving up my KC game to do this, bro. And
He
it's
was
10-10
gracious
fourth
enough.
quarter, so it's
He
okay.
was gracious enough to come on with us, and we definitely appreciate him. We ain't gonna hold him hostage. But for anyone that may want to get a hold of you, Michael, or if you want to share your information on how people can contact you, the floor is yours, my
Sure.
friend.
Michael.Lampel, Lampel @gmail.com. Happy to answer your questions about technology and all that. My background is economics, tech business, data business. Chuck's known me for a long time. I was in the data management business. And I built the first web-based logistic data management business in 2003. So logistic data and gathering data was my baby for over 30 years.
Yeah. You're good at it.
Well, Chuck, thanks again, Michael, for taking your time
Thank
out.
you
We
so
can't
much,
thank you enough.
Michael. Always a pleasure.
Pleasure, guys.
We'll let you get back to the game.
No, but you got to say your taglines. You know, keep it.
Definitely. We're coming to it. We coming to it. You want to hang out with us a little while longer, Chuck? Let the folks know how they can find you.
Okay. If anybody needs anything, please reach out to me. My email address is chucksnow280@outlook.com. Put your phone number on the email, and I will certainly get right back to you and solve whatever issue I can. With that, Rico, I'm going to let you back her in a hole for another week.
Well, once again, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you guys for taking the time out to join us. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you hung out with us. We're always eternally grateful for you doing so. And with that being said, we want you guys to continue to stay safe out there, stay healthy, keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise, and we'll talk at you same time, same place next week. God bless you and good night.
Catch you on the flip flop. God bless.
There you go, Mike.
Thanks again.
Appreciate it again, Michael. We can't thank you enough.
Take care, guys.
Take it easy.
God bless.